the Acolyte season finale and hopefully series finale came out. Absolutely disastrous. The characters continue to surprise me because they just make no sense at all. They managed to pull off impressive feats like destroying Yoda's character with about 1 second of screen time and no dialogue. So praise be to Leslie Headland. We get a weird Darth Plagueis Golem cameo because all good ideas now that were from original characters must be retconned to the Disney characters. We saw something similar with Reva, where she let Leia go on purpose to track her. Obviously, Darth Vader does that in the OT. So now Reva gets credit for that idea. The Witch Coven gets credit for creating life with the Force. And presumably that's why Plagueis pursued it. We don't really know because his shit's not canon anymore. But they want to do the thing where they have their cake and eat it too. So they rely on people to fill in the gaps with shit like that. Osha is somehow turned on by a guy who murdered her friends in front of her enough to completely change her lifestyle and brutally kill Squid Game. So, yeah, the characters are just all over the place. I don't even know what to make of it. I'm not sure if I even have too much to say because everything is just so inexplicable. And when the characters have no like core values or personality traits, they kind of just do things. Like they're all like the Joker in Dark Knight, where he's like ranting to Harvey Dent in the hospital about how if he actually got a hold of the car, he wouldn't know what to do with it. And he says, do I look like a guy with a plan? And that's what I feel like the writers were doing in the writer's room. Like, do they seem like people with a plan? Or do the characters just do things? So let's just fucking get into it. So right away, I have no fucking idea what's happening. She has the helmet on from 2 episodes ago. And suddenly she's super powerful and the background's changing and shit. Chymere's eyes bug out of his head. No idea what's happening. And thank God we don't get any explanations for stuff that's important so we can waste time with scenes like Basil doing a Three Stooges act with May. And maybe this is explained in some comic somewhere or book that is still canon, or even the EU that's no longer canon. I don't give a shit. It needs to be in the show. And we get some super awkward dialogue here where he says that he's going to take his ship and go to May. But then Osha's like, well, I'm the one who knows where she is. And I don't know why now she can sense the Force so much more strongly than he can. Or why he doesn't just be like, okay, well, you're going to fucking tell me or I'll kill you. Or he can just beat her ass and make her tell him. Either way. I'm not sure why she's like in charge now of their little team. Also, I'm not even sure why he really cares about getting May. If all he wants is an acolyte, then he's got Osha right there. Who apparently a flip to the dark side means you just see one cock and then you're evil. I don't fucking know. Because she has no other motivations otherwise. And at this point, she still doesn't know anything. Because the last episode was supposed to be Soul talking to May, who already knew everything. I don't know what this fucking show is doing or trying to do. It did nothing either way. And then we get a bunch of nonsense here to pad the runtime, where he has her cuffed to the table but lets her keep Pip. Which I guess no one is sad that Pip just had his like consciousness destroyed by May. And now she's owning him. But either way, this sets up so that she can tase him and escape. We get kind of a dumb space scene. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We're spending time on stuff that doesn't really make much sense and is just kind of stupid. Soul's character was the most interesting character to start the season. And by the end of it, he's just kind of an idiot. So there's that. And we get some more dialogue that I think the writers are like, oh, both sides have good points here. But not really. Like when Soul says everyone there died because of you, if the Jedi just hadn't shown up, she still would have burned their fucking house down with everybody inside because she had locked them inside, which is what he says. Not to mention, we don't even understand the cause of the deaths of all the ones that Trinity killed. And then he killed her mom because she was turning into a Dementor or some kind of demon ghoul witch thing. Instead of just being like, oh, Osha can go with you. She was like sucking the life out of May. Again, we don't get explanations for any of the stuff that should be important in this show. But either way, this argument is just nonsensical. Like you're supposed to believe it's a good argument because that's what the writers want you to believe. But they're not actually making good points. When Soul says it's May's fault, he's right. I mean, if you want to blame anybody else as far as the adults, it'd be the horny mom because she's the one who got May all riled up as a kid. Either way, the Jedi aren't at fault. So. And we do find out that Osha and May were one person who got split into two. Again, no real explanations for this. They just kind of sweep it under the rug under the guise of magic. And I'll just say again, they wasted his acting. He's like the only one trying. And this episode relies so heavily, well, the whole show really relies so heavily on Amanda Stenberg playing two different people. And she is just a plank of wood. So she escapes. Again, we have selective force use. They just don't use it when they really should be using it all the time. I mean, as far as we know, they don't even have any kind of like mana limit or anything. They can just use it. But either way, she gives this cringy ass "See you in hell, Jedi," which I guess is a reference to Empire. And she's on her way. So Soul is chasing May through these like planetary rings. And it's a neat looking shot, but there's not too much interesting about it. They're just kind of flying straight. But then Basil, for some reason, sabotages him so he can't shoot her. And they both go tumbling down to the planet. Obviously, they're fine because it's just a spaceship crash. And what does that even mean, Star Wars? But I don't understand this at all. Like, Basil helped hunt them down or hunt May down. And then the last time that we saw him was his little Three Stooges act where he stepped on her foot and sprayed oil in her face. But then now he's saving her. No clue. But they need to keep this little fuck around to try to sell toys, I guess. So he can just do good shit and bad shit. Who cares? I think the people who made the show think that doing things that are contradictory means you have a good side and bad side instead of you're just a fucking asshole or your character makes no sense. Like in the real world, people do things that are contradictory, usually for some kind of underlying principle. This show, no one has any beliefs. They just kind of do things. So they just take actions that are directly contradictory with no explanation, seemingly no reason. We don't know anything about them. And that includes this little alien fuck. And then we go to Coruscant, where they have this black senator who might as well just look right into the camera and read off like the BLM talking points website. And he just talks about how they're trying to hide things from the Senate, and he's implying that it's a cover-up and they need external investigations and blah, 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 because they're investigating a murder. Just all kind of anti-police messaging that I wouldn't call very subtle or very interesting. And then Vernestra is just an asshole, but she kind of just gets away with it. So make of that what you will. And then he just kind of monologues and tells you what the belief of the show is, that the Jedi are a cult and hiding under the guise of religion. They think they can control their emotions, which make of that fucking message what you will. I mean, the guy saying it is being portrayed as like righteous, talking to the obviously corrupt bald green lady. So the show seems to actually believe that. Yeah, just really in your face with the messaging. The show hates the Jedi. I think it's been pretty clear all season. And in this episode, they just come right out and say it. And again, just I don't even understand what's happening in this fucking scene. Chimera is like, you need to be trained. Would you consider like coming with me? And she just flat out says no. And we've got about 20 minutes left in the season. She finally finds out about Soul's lie to her, and then now they're kind of a couple or something. And they both had their hand on a lightsaber to end the fucking show. So yeah, just whatever they need to be from scene to scene. I wanted to point this out really quickly. We get more stupidity from Soul. But he knows Basil fucking sabotaged him. Leaves him on the ship alone. Doesn't put him in cuffs, doesn't arrest him, doesn't make him get off the ship at a minimum. Just lets him have it while he wanders around to do who the hell knows what. So Mog, this dorky ass looking Jedi, is like, hey, Soul turned his tracker back on. Also not super clear to me why. But she says, get every Jedi you can, we're going to go get them. Luckily, teleportation exists in this world, so they get there in a few minutes. And this scene, we just really get more like lack of paying attention to any kind of detail. So Osha's like, this elevator is the only way to get in. But the elevator was broken from the inside, so she shouldn't be able to fix it from the outside. Not to mention, you can see the condition that it's in. It's been derelict for 16 years at this point. And then she says to Chimera, unless you want to climb, and they do the fucking Batman thing where he's just gone. And I guess teleported up top. And then we get a lot of fighting. I guess Chimera and Soul are fighting over who gets to keep May without even asking her. Because it doesn't particularly seem like she wants to be with either one. I mean, the choreography between Soul and Chimera is okay. We also had to watch Amanda Stenberg fight herself, and it is brutal to watch. Like, you should not be casting actresses who can't at least be trained to do like passable choreography. And somehow, once again, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 100 fucking times, shame on me. I gave this fucking show too much credit because they're fighting on this like little bridge area, and you can see the lightsaber going through the structure at different parts. So I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna like collapse it in on them or something while they're fighting, because that'd be a neat way to use the environment. But no, they just wanted sparks because they think they look cool, I guess. And then we get one of the weirdest slow motion shots and one of the cringiest shots in Star Wars, which at this point is a feat. Let me see if I can play it and not get hit with copyright for you. It's absolutely bizarre. They're both kind of floating like they're Superman who can actually fly or something. It's a really strange scene. Not sure whose decision that was. And Chimera pulls out his other little saber again. I think it's called a Shoto saber. So I like that. It's a neat use of the lightsabers and being a little bit creative with them. Then we get some okay choreography in here again. Not really too much to say about it, honestly. Okay, I lied. I do have something to say about it. I forgot about this cringy ass part too. Holy cow. I'm going to try to play this part too real quick. Just going full Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat. Again, I don't know what they're thinking with that stuff. I think the problem is that they want to mix up the fighting so it's not just swinging sabers back and forth. But instead of taking the time to, plan out a little bit and use the environment, they're just like, oh, Let's just throw in a move that they never do otherwise, without accepting the fact that like, the reason people don't do that move is because he would just get his legs cut off. And again, they try to mix it up here where he throws both the sabers at him and then he tries to force choke him. A big issue with this whole episode that I didn't mention is power scaling. Like Chimera, the first time that we see him, destroys like a dozen Jedi Knights in no time. And then, you know, we see that him and Soul, for whatever reason, are both like even most of the time. But then I guess Soul is just like way fucking better than the rest of the Jedi. But then in a minute here, Osha gets mad and just chokes him like a bitch. So again, they just clearly didn't plan ahead. They didn't think about like, okay, how do we reasonably develop these characters so the ones that can get more powerful across the season, suddenly it makes sense when they're more powerful. I mean, Osha, I guess people have probably forgotten because this show sucks so bad, couldn't even grab Pip in the first couple episodes when the ship was crashing. And then in this episode, she's fucking bleeding the Kyber crystal, which I don't even know what that means. She's force choking Soul with like no resistance. It's all just insane. And there was nothing to build that up or earn it. She literally just puts the helmet on and then turns it on. And watching Amanda Stenberg have this conversation with herself is like watching someone just talk in a mirror. She has hardly any emotion on her face. The characters don't feel different. Like when you cast someone to play twins, they need to feel like two different people. And at no point this season does she accomplish that. They just feel like the same the entire time because neither one has any fucking emotions. If you want to see a good example of that, there's a movie called Legend with Tom Hardy, where he's like a British gangster, and the one twin is like running the gang, and he's very kind of subdued and clever. And the other twin is like crazy as shit and always causing problems for him. And they feel like two different people. Even a pile of shit movie. I just watched the second Divergent movie the other night, which terrible series, don't bother. But there's one part in the second movie where Shailene Woodley is talking to herself, and one of them is like the evil version of her. And she does more acting in that fucking 30 seconds than Amanda Stenberg does at any point this season. And this is another one of those conversations that I feel like the authors are trying to insist that it makes sense that they're conflicted. And it just doesn't. Like May saw Soul stab his mom or her mom, but she didn't see the fucking demon ghoul thing she was turning into or feel herself getting sucked off. I don't know what you would call it. She was like disappearing like she was the end of Infinity War. She just leaves all that out. It's just a nonsensical conflict so that we can have this shitty ass fight. And they try to break this fight up using Soul and Chimera to make it look less miserable. It doesn't work. And here I'll show you a little bit more of this wonderful choreography. Props to the stunt woman, I guess, but yeah. And I actually find it appalling that they're trying to use like Matrix style choreography. And the music actually sounds pretty similar to when in Matrix, what's the third one called? Resurrections, where Neo is fighting Smith in front of all the other Smiths who are just watching. And, you know, the whole fucking city's blowing up and the rain's going everywhere and they're flying all over the place. And it's got the big dramatic music. So they're doing all that stuff, except this is the fight that we're getting. Ugh. Some more wonderful expressions here from Amandla. You can tell she's not fucking with your discourse. Anyway, also they do the thing here where they fight the same. And it's like they haven't been around each other since they were 8. One was trained by Chimera, and the other one was trained by the Jedi for a little bit, I guess. She says that she never became a Jedi, so I don't know. I guess she was busy mech necking. Either way, why would they fight the same? unless you think fighting is a genetic predisposition to certain styles of karate. Again, really weird dialogue here where Vanestra and her group show up and Soul says you'll pay for what you've done. And Kymir's just like, nah, they ain't here for me. And that's it. It just cuts away back to the Amandala battle. Don't know how he'd know that. Don't know why he'd think that. Fuck it. He said it, so it must be true, I guess. They do this stupid Batman thing again where if someone's not on screen or not on camera, they just don't count. So like here we cut back down, or we zoom into Osha. She looks down and suddenly May is just gone. Super sneaky. Super sneaky. Soul cuts his lightsaber in half and he just kind of surrenders, which, you know, fine. I don't know. I kind of feel like he would run away, it'd be more in character for him, but either way, let's just say he surrenders for the sake of this shit. And again, Soul waits like 20 seconds until Osha can come save instead of just cutting him down. Like at some point, you don't have the luxury of bringing him in alive, clearly. But, you know, we want drama and plot, even if it makes no fucking sense at all. And I'm getting so tired of this in Disney Star Wars, of someone not having a lightsaber and just straight up taking it from someone else. Like, every time that happens, you undermine the value of a lightsaber. Not to mention, at what point in this fucking show are we supposed to believe that May can beat Soul in any kind of fight or duel or struggle? I mean, give me a break. And Kymir does the strike him down, of course, after she's tossed the lightsaber away. And she's like, no, I want him to confess to the High Council and pay for what he did. Which, first of all, bitch, you be right next to him. I mean, are we forgetting that this show started with her murdering Trinity and getting Torben to poison himself? And she's been hanging out with the Sith for who knows how long. So, accomplice to all that shit. All of that aside, if he confesses the truth, nothing's going to happen because the Jedi didn't do anything wrong, despite what the show wants to believe or wants the audience to believe. So, way to go there. And this scene is just like the epitome of this entire show. It requires the characters to not finish sentences and be retarded to function. Because May says, you killed our mom again. And all he has to do is say, yeah, she was trying to suck your soul out and turn into a demon. And the conversation's over because he's right. But instead of saying it, he just looks sad. Because if he says it, then it makes it even more obvious how busted this fucking plot is. We get some more weird dialogue here where Osha's like, if it was the right thing to do, why didn't you tell the Jedi? And Soul's like, well, without May, we couldn't prove this virgin shit or whatever. Which again, I guess this implies the Jedi did no investigation of their own, even though like 50 people died. And that doesn't change the fact that she was turning into a demon witch thing and they were going to sacrifice the kids. At least to your knowledge. And also, the Jedi acted in the defensive the entire time during that interaction. Even when they took the kids, they asked for permission. This show would have you believe they just come stole them. So yeah, all of this is just ridiculous. And it's really hard for me to accept that people got paid to write this and that not a single person who put eyes on this script or was filming or anything else was like, hey, this doesn't really make any fucking sense at any point along the way. Also, Soul was going to tell her that he loves her here. And I'm assuming that they meant that as more like a master apprentice way. But again, we don't know anything about their relationship. I mean, she said in this episode she didn't get to become a Jedi. They said early in the season that she left at least 6 years ago. And he met her when she was 8 years old. And they didn't really have any kind of connection. The whole thing is just fucking weird. Intentional or not, they did kind of turn him into, a groomer at best. The way that this is shot with the music and stuff, it wants you to feel bad for them. Right now, we're looking at 3 murderers on screen. But the fucking morals of these people, man. And this is where we get that she's suddenly so powerful that she can bleed her kyber crystal or whatever. I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with the bleeding of the crystals. My understanding is that it's a fairly recent thing that they introduced, and it's something to do with like almost a physical manifestation of their wrath and anger and shit, corrupting the crystal so it turns red. I always thought that the red sabers were literally just red kyber crystals or synthetic crystals or whatever the case is. I'm not a big fan of this bleeding crystal thing. And the fact that she can just do it in this moment because she's pissed off and she's the best and all that, it just typical. Typical horse shit. Vanestra's here. Obviously, like I said, she teleported. Chimera doesn't have his helmet on, so she senses him immediately. And shocking no one, she was the one that whipped him. I don't know how she thought that he was dead when he wasn't. I guess there's just no checking for a pulse in the Star Wars universe. Maybe humans don't even have pulses. Who the fuck knows? But she pretty much just uses this to railroad Soul. We find out that May somehow fell into this secret hole as a kid, and that's how she survived. Whatever. Also, I wanted to point out that for whatever reason, Vernestra is the only one who can sense Chimera, but at no point can any of them sense each other when they're looking for each other. Again, they just don't know what to do with the Force. Sometimes they remember it and they're like, oh yeah, we should probably use that. And then the rest of the time they're like, kind of don't want to include that right now. So they see Soul's body. She says to set up a perimeter. And she says 5 clicks, which I'm not sure how much of a 5-click perimeter you can set up with like 15 people. And also why you wouldn't be using your spaceship with all the technology that it has. And she tells Mog, the ugly Jedi, to use the tracker, which is Basil. So apparently they can't sense anything with the Force except for Vernestra sense Chimera. And also their spaceships have no technology. Wonderful world building. They go to this one fucking tree that I guess is the only tree that exists on this planet that sticks out. And Chimera goes, if I can find you, the Jedi will too. Although apparently not, because they're using a tracker. So whatever. And all of this is just like, what the hell is happening right now? Like, they're reunited. They were just fighting like 10 minutes ago. They're getting along now. Osha says, I'll go with you. Let May go. Not sure why he couldn't take both. I guess the cockpit only has room for 2. Or he doesn't want, May to interrupt their new love life. I don't fucking know. And then he just memory wipes her. Like, she just volunteers immediately. He does it in like one wave of the hand. And I guess her brain has been reset to 8 years old again or something. And this is the type of thing that when you introduce it into Star Wars, it's like, oh, well, now you've just completely fucked everything. Like, you can just read minds, you can force Skype people, you can wipe memories. Like, the Jedi should be able to do fucking anything. And if the Jedi aren't, the Sith certainly should be. I mean, how useful would that be? For instance, when he was undercover as a pharmacist, if he had been like, oh, memory wipe, you guys forgot me. And somehow he can precisely wipe the memories of only these 2. I mean, just give me a break. So May gets arrested and says, what did I do? Pretty convenient for her, I guess. Oh, man. I'm not even sure what to say about that. Like, would the Jedi really not arrest her just because she says that she forgot her crimes? And I guess the show just thinks that no one watched. Because again, when she's asked what she remembers, she says, that man killed my mother. Nothing about the context, though. Even the fire, she just says there was a fire. Not, yeah, I somehow burned down a half a fucking mountain. And again, the show just continues with the amnesia. Because she praises the shit out of Soul to May and then goes here and just completely railroads him. There's nothing to even cover up. Like, they should have just said right from the beginning what happened. And even now they could say what happened and explain the divergence, even though they don't have a fucking explanation for it, I'm sure. And why it was significant and blah, blah, blah. Or that he wanted to cover it up so that he could raise the girls, but he didn't actually do anything wrong. But nah, Vernestra's like, fuck him. Hashtag stop the Asian hate. Yeah, so she burns Soul's body. Everyone just takes her at her word. They don't check for pulses. They don't do autopsies. They're just like, oh, okay. Well, she said it's good, guys. Let's call it a day and get lunch. Unreal. So Vernestra wants May to help her find Chimere. I guess when Jedi die, there's just no investigations. No one gives a fuck. We have no clue why she tried to kill him. I guess that's all just, figure it out later. I mean, they're more than willing to just smear the Jedi, so at this point, you might as well get all of them involved. Shit, they're going to bring Yoda in just a minute here. Bring them all in, fuck it. And then we get this scene that is portrayed as like a good thing. It's not really portrayed as tragic, where Chimere and Osha are holding hands around a lightsaber together. And they're looking at each other like, yeah, I can't wait to embrace my passions as a Sith later in the cave. I mean, I don't even know what to fucking say about this. It's so bizarre that she ends up with the guy who murdered her friends in front of her, who murdered Jecki, who they've said outside the show that they were supposed to have some kind of romantic tension together. She sees him naked, puts on a helmet, and just loins her on fire, I guess. Here you go. Here's a screenshot of them holding hands. I'm not sure how else to interpret this besides romantically, especially with the way that they're looking at each other and the music and shit. I mean, there's nothing more romantic than, looking out over the ocean with your lover after you've both committed some cold-blooded murders for no reason. Oh, man. And here's why I said they destroyed Yoda's character in about 2 seconds with no dialogue. She says we need to talk, and then we go to the credits. So either one, Yoda's too stupid to see that she's lying, or sense it, or whatever else. Or two, he's part of it. So you can pick malicious or stupid. Neither one is good for Yoda, who's supposed to be, 650 years old at this point, or whatever he is. I just can't believe that they actually managed to get him in there. He literally doesn't say a word, and they fucked him up. Anyway, that's it for the Acolyte. It's just, it was just a piss poor show. I feel like it might get a season 2 for spite. I don't know why it would. The ratings, from what I've heard, are terrible. I think it started off as lower ratings than Ahsoka, which was the previous lowest one. Ahsoka and Andor, I think, for the live action. And then I'm pretty sure the ratings fell off a cliff. So I guess we'll see. The fact that they didn't announce a season 2 at any point, maybe they won't do it. But yeah, it's every single thing about this show was incompetent, except for the acting of, I think Lee Jung-jae is Soul's actual name, and Manny Jacinto, who plays Chimere. Everything else was pitiful. Yeah, I skipped over the Darth Plagueis cameo, so I'll put that up on screen too. Anyway, yeah, everything about this show is inept. It's probably the worst Star Wars show that I've seen. I think Kenobi made me angrier, along with Ahsoka, because I really like throwing in the books. But this show was just bad in every facet. The characters contradicted themselves constantly. Even calling them characters is pretty generous. None of them really had any core personality traits or goals. Even now, with the entire season over, does anyone know what any of the characters wanted? Like, Soul wanted forgiveness. Chimera said he wanted freedom, which he had until he started murdering Jedi. Vernestra just wanted to be a corrupt bitch, I guess. Osha and May were just lumps, as reflected by Amanda Stenberg very well. So yeah, I mean, everything about this show was just pointless. The most that we got out of it was like some weird retconning and stuff becoming canon that used to be canon, but then wasn't again. Yeah, I can't believe they spent $200 million on it. I wouldn't even be surprised if they don't get a season 2, but they announce it and pretend they're gonna, just like Rian Johnson's trilogy and all that other shit. And then just quietly pull this show off of Disney Plus. It's really hard for me to imagine that anyone enjoyed this show beyond maybe some of the lightsaber choreography. Everything else about it was just kind of forgettable and just meaningless, really, in the bigger picture. It's its own story, so it really doesn't even need to be included for anything. But I'm going to leave it there for this one. Yeah, this show was fucking bad. And I'll be honest, my expectations were very, very low. Just from all the marketing for this show about how it was the gayest Star Wars, and Leslie Headland, who doesn't really seem to have any experience, and when she's asked about Star Wars, says that she loves all of it. She can't pick a favorite movie, like that type of shit. I mean, that just reads like someone completely BSing. I don't think the intent was to ever make a good show. It seems like they just wanted to push their bullshit. They wanted to smear the Jedi. They kind of did. They could barely even do that, though. They were so incompetent. So yeah, if you've seen the show, let me know what you think. I'm going to leave it there for this one. I try to respond to all the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.